Good morning, Montia. It is Tuesday, November 1st, which means it's not October anymore, which means that it's NaNoWriMo, which means that I should probably be writing my novel, but I am not. It's off to a really great start this month and I just got off of Skype with you, and that was fun, and we should do that again, because that was really entertaining until that part where I hurt myself with a Powerade bottle, but apart from that, it was really fun. Anyways, I don't remember what you said in your last video, which is probably good, because I have to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer now, and I can see this taking a while. Anyways, so we will get on to that now. Okay, so Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, which is in Wisconsin, on May 21st, 1960, and his parents were Lionel and Joyce Dahmer, and Lionel, after Jeffrey was arrested, wrote a book about his view on the whole thing, which is called The Father Story, and I really want to read it because it looks fantastic. Jeffrey was like really well loved when he was little, and he was always really happy and energetic and stuff, and there are also rumors that he abused animals, but he didn't, and he had this dog called Frisky that he like loved a lot, which, I mean, obviously he loved it. It was a dog called Frisky. How do you not love a dog called Frisky? Anyways, he, with his father, also helped nurse a baby bird back to health, and like they released it back into the wild, and he was all happy when they did that, and it was great. The family moved to Iowa when Jeffrey was younger, and then he lived there until he was 7, and then they moved to Ohio. And I mean, apart from that, he was slightly abnormal. When his father was cleaning out dead animal bones from like this area that apparently had dead animal bones in it, and Jeff seemed oddly thrilled by the sound of the bones clattering against each other, and then he just like thrust his hand into the pile of bones to hear the sounds, and yeah. He also really liked one of his teachers, and so he gave her a tub of tadpoles, and then he found out that his teacher gave the tadpoles to his best friend. So he went into the best friend's garage and like killed all the tadpoles with motor oil, because that's like a logical thing to do. When Jeffrey was 6, he had to get a surgery because he had a double hernia, which sounds really painful, and no one told him what was happening, and so like, yeah, he just really didn't recover from that, and after that he was just very quiet and reserved, and he would just like sit and stare into space for hours and stuff, and he was always really an outcast, and he would fake epileptic seizures in high school because he thought they were funny, and he got ridiculed a lot, and he would say like really weird and gruesome things, and yeah, people just avoided him, and he was blacked out in his yearbook for sneaking into an honor society picture that he didn't belong to, which almost solidified the fact that he never belonged in the school or with his peers. And in order to handle the rejection, he reverted to alcohol, and so he'd just go to school like completely shattered. And yeah. Around 15, Jeff got really shy and really tense, and like his one friend had drifted away, and most of his days were spent picking up dead animals from the side of the road for his own personal cemetery. And he'd like strip the flesh off of the animals and mount their heads on stakes and whatnot. And like, he didn't do this to living animals. He hated that his friends would kill living animals, but he liked playing with dead animals. So around when he was 14, I believe, he started having fantasies of killing men and having sex with their corpses, which is a tiny bit bizarre, and his fantasies didn't really begin to overwhelm him until he graduated, when he became obsessed with this runner in the park by his house, and he began to imagine sleeping with him while he was dead or unconscious, and he brought a bat out one day to make his fantasies come true, and like the runner didn't come by that day, which sucked for Jeff. Probably not so much for the runner, unless he generally enjoys dying. His first kill didn't come until June of 1978. One of his strongest fantasies was that of picking up a hitchhiker and killing him on the side, so one day in June, he was driving along and he saw this guy, Stephen Hicks, on the side of the road, and he picked him up, brought him home, and then they had sex and drank beer and wrestled and stuff. And then Stephen wanted to leave, and Jeff didn't want him to, and he really hated the idea of him leaving, so he hit him upside the head with a barbell and killed him on accident. Like, he insisted that he didn't mean to kill him. He only wanted to make him stay, and this need for people to stay with him is what drove him to murder and eventually eat all of the guys that he did. And after he killed him, he chopped Stephen up and put him in some trash bags and then scattered his remains in the woods. On his way to the clearing, he got stopped by an officer due to his driving, which is apparently reckless. And the officer saw the trash bags, asked about them, and then left. And this was the first of many instances where Jeff was like this close to getting caught. 9 years after that passed before he killed again. Jeff would pick up most of his victims in gay bars around the downtown area. And yeah, picking people up outside in gay bars doesn't sound fun. Anyways, he convinced them to come back to his place, and then yeah, he would drug them until they were unconscious, wait for them to come off of the drugs, and then kill them. Or in some cases, he would try to make them living sex zombies by drilling holes into their skulls and injecting their brains with like a mix of chemicals. Most of these victims died immediately, but one of the zombies lived for 3 days, which is sort of amazing when you think about it, because like, bro just created a zombie, and yeah, which I find this way too impressive. Yeah, either way, almost no one left apartment 213 alive, but Jeff would only kill the ones he loved, so that's nice. After he killed them, he would have sex with the corpses or else masturbate on them, and then he'd dismember them in the bathtub, and taking photographs of each stage of his dismemberment, he'd strip the flesh, clean the bones, and thrust his hands into where the internal organs were to feel that, yeah. A lot of people think he used a chainsaw. He didn't, because a chainsaw would be really loud, and then that would probably alert people to the fact that something was happening, and so he used a knife. He would keep certain mementos from his victims. Most often would be the genitalia, which he would preserve in chemicals. Also the skulls, which he stripped, cleaned, and then painted gray in order to make them look like plastic classroom skulls. As far as the cannibalism goes, he only ate the victims so that they could fully be a part of them and never leave, and he felt like by eating them, they would live through him forever, which, I guess. Another close call with the police occurred when a 14-year-old boy, his 13th victim, escaped. He was running naked down the street when Jeff's neighbor called the police. Jeffrey came down the street, saw the boy and the cops, told them that they lived together, and the cops escorted him home. Not wanting to get into a homosexual domestic disturbance thing, they just took a quick look around before leaving. If they had actually looked around, they'd have noticed the photographs of the dead bodies, some decaying bodies, various body parts, and, you know, human meat in the fridge. From what I remember about the actual arrest, one of Jeff's victims escaped with a handcuff still on, and a couple of cops brought him back to Jeff's to get the key, which he didn't have, because he wouldn't need it, because he would just, like, cut it off. The cops looked around for a while and found photographs and decomposing bodies and a head in the fridge, and he was arrested, which, you know. His trial didn't start until January of 1992, and it lasted about 2 weeks. he was accused of 17 acts of murder, which was later dropped to 15, and earned 15 consecutive life sentences, which totaled out to 957 years in prison. And I don't know much about what happened when he was in prison, apart from how he became a born-again Christian whilst in prison and was killed by another inmate with a barbell, which ironically is how Jeff killed his first victim. Some stories say it was a metal rod, and some say it was a mop handle, but I like how everything comes full circle with the barbell, so that is how I will tell it. Jeff's brain was kept after he died for analysis, and, a lot of people, I think, have this thing with serial killers, and I think we as humans have this, like, psychological need to understand. And we just want to understand things, and we want to know why people do the things that they do, or why they act the way that they act. And we can't explain that with people like Jeffrey Dahmer, especially, because with a lot of serial killers, you can pin it down to them being insane and not knowing what they're doing, but he was fully conscious through what he was doing. He knew that what he was doing was wrong and continued doing it. And I think that's why a lot of people, like, are sort of enamored with him. That's a good word, but it's a bad word for the situation, but it's sort of what it is. It's like, we're really interested in him because he's something that we can't understand and we never will be able to. No matter how much analysis they did to his brain, we're never going to understand why he did that stuff, because it's just too foreign and it won't make sense. And I think that's why people do things like write entire albums about him. That album, by the way, is Dahmer by Macabre. Yeah, and it's, from what I've heard of it, it's really fantastic. Plus, I'm really interested in cannibalism because of the fact that it just seems really weird, and I don't know. I don't know what to say to end this, because I just spent like 12 minutes talking about Jeffrey Dahmer and I can't edit this, but yeah, I think people like Jeffrey Dahmer are just going to stay in the collective memory of humanity, because he's something we can't understand and will never be able to understand. And so he's just going to be remembered. And yeah, that's all really. Yeah. This video did not end up as good as I thought it was going to at all, and I'm sorry, and that's all for today, and I will see you tomorrow, which will be fun, and yeah, so, bye.